I've played a lot of video games in my many years on this planet, and have picked many of my favorites throughout that time. Mostly Nintendo games. I can safely say what my favorite games are, but when I look at their franchises, even though I love a lot that has come from them, I can't truly say I like the franchise as much as the game I relate to it. There is one though. A franchise I love to support and look over, even though I can't really say that the games are in my top 10. This franchise is Resident Evil. Resident Evil is a fascinating franchise to me, as it has changed so much since the first game. It still feels like Resident Evil, except for maybe 2 games. But I'll get to that when I get to that. Because Resident Evil 4 Remake is coming out soon, I've taken it upon myself to speedrun through all the main Resident Evil games before the game releases. I hope to get the video out on 4 about a week before the remake comes out, but knowing me, I might be a year later, so... Now, I got a lot to cover, so I'll start with the first game and my introduction to the series. Let's play Resident Evil on PS1. The first Resident Evil is an interesting game. It doesn't take too long to see how dated the game is, but the game uses that fact to its advantage to make an honestly kinda spooky time. The game follows members of STAR's Alpha Team, Chris Redfield or Jill Valentine, as they make their way around the mysterious Spencer Mansion, solving puzzles and fighting off zombies. When starting the game, you're given the option of either Jill or Chris to play. The route you take as either is pretty similar, but the story is different and there are a couple character-specific items that change up your playthrough just enough. I'll be going over both campaigns, starting as Jill, as she's an easier time first go. It should also be taken a note that I played the original copy on my PS2, and I couldn't capture the footage, so I borrowed the Turkish Bullets playthrough to use because I didn't want the video to look like this. An issue with this, though, is unlike me, Mr. Bullet here is actually good at the game, so it'll make describing certain segments a little harder. Shouldn't be much of a problem for you watching, but it will for me. The story begins with a narration from Chris to some live-action footage. It appears that Bravo Team was sent in to investigate some disturbances, but stopped responding, so Alpha Team was deployed to figure out what happened. Upon landing, they realized that this was a mistake! After some close shots of a totally real dogmouth, the helicopter pilot Brad Vickers just leaves, and Chris gives a very convincing line read.
No! Don't go!
Alpha Team is pushed into the mysterious Spencer Mansion, and we get an incredibly dated character intro screen.
Chris Redfield. Jill Valentine. Barry Burton. Rebecca Chambers. Albert Wesker. Resident Evil.
It appears that Chris has gone missing as Barry, Wesker, and Jill stand in the main hall, and we get a real taste of the iconic Resident Evil voice acting.
Stop it! Don't open that door!
I like it. Yeah, when designing this game, Capcom seems to have spent a lot more time working on the game instead of acting, so many deliveries are botched and poorly timed, and the writing overall isn't too great. But I love the voice acting in this game so much. It's not good, but that doesn't mean it's not entertaining. Each cutscene is a fun little break from the gameplay, and the voice acting only makes it more fun. Barry and Jill go to investigate a distant gunshot as Wesker stays back in the main hall.
Stay alert!
This is when we get a taste of how the game will play. The game uses fixed camera angles and tank controls over pre-rendered backgrounds. At first, the gameplay is really jarring, but it begins to make more sense as you play. Having the entire mansion be its own 3D model would take up too much space, so by having the backgrounds pre-rendered, it allows the game to have a lot more detail and value to it. They're able to fill up this mansion with stuff that they wouldn't if they had fully 3D environments. They then use the fixed camera angles to build tension, as you can't see around every corner. The tank controls are also an easy fix to some issues that come with the camera, as you will always know which way is forward. Now, this depends on the person who's playing, but in my opinion, the clunkiness that comes with the tank controls adds to the fear developed in this game, as it's not too frustrating, but you don't feel too secure in your own movements. Continuing the story, Barry and Jill walk down the dining hall and find blood.
Hope this is not Chris's blood.
Jill continues to the other room on her own and discovers where the gunshots came from. It's a grisly sight. Kenneth from Bravo Team is found being snacked on by a zombie in an iconic scene from gaming. Now normally you would panic at this point as you realize you don't have your pistol equipped and struggle operating your inventory and get chomped a few times. Of course that doesn't happen to Mr. Bullet though, as he uses Kenneth's body to stay just the right distance from the zombie and knife them down. Jill goes back to report to Barry and something's followed her. It's not too scary though, as it's killed by Barry in the cutscene. They head back to the main hall to tell Wesker and he's gone. They decide that if they're going to make it out alive in this mansion, they're going to have to split up. Because of course they do. And the mansion actually opens up for Jill to explore. She also finds some ink ribbons, which is yet another feature from Resident Evil that sucks, but in a good way. Throughout the game you'll find ink ribbons scattered about. You use these to save your progress, and that's really cool. The game makes even saving a dangerous game, as you'll want to save after all the puzzle you've solved, but you might not, because you can only save so much, and if you run out of ribbons, recovering from death will take longer and longer. The game gives you plenty of ribbons, so you don't have to be too frugal, but watch out. I had only one moment in my playthrough where I ran out of ribbons, but it was painful to get through. Now of course Bullet Man doesn't save at all when he plays, but it's fine. I'm not mad or anything. Barry gives Jill a lockpick because she's the
Master of unlocking.
and I went through the blue double doors and solved a simple push puzzle to get a map of the bottom floor. Behind this drawer was an ankle biter and some ribbons, and using the lockpick Barry gave Jill, I unlocked this door and dogs! This was a pretty decent early game jump scare, but the dogs in Resident Evil aren't too hard to dodge. Continuing onwards, I walk through this very artsy room to ooh, shotgun! That's probably fine. I left the room and, uh-oh, frick. I can't die already, I just got here. I should've been paying more attention. I knew my hubris would be the death of me.
Jill? Is that you, Jill?
Barry! I know we just saw each other, I'm already in trouble, but you gotta get me out of here.
Stay away from the door, Jill. I'm gonna kick this door down.
Hurry! This way!
Hooey! No consequences!
Oh, Barry!
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
Barry, now I wish you didn't save me. Anyway, I have a shotgun now, and it's my favorite weapon in the game. It's just so satisfying. Body shots are okay, but if you aim up last second and crack-ow! Instant kill and their heads pop off. You get plenty of ammo for it too pretty quick after getting it, so it makes the pistol pretty useless. After the sandwich fiasco, Jill continues her exploration of the mansion, and now I can talk about the puzzles. The first Resident Evils are known for their puzzles, and the first game is infamous for its outlandish puzzles and paths that Spencer had installed just so that he could make breakfast in the most convoluted ways possible. For example, one puzzle requires you to find and play Moonlight Sonata on a piano, so you can open up this hidden wall and switch out this golden emblem with a wooden emblem somewhere else to move this really loud clock which has a key in it. This key only opens up one door, by the way. When I first found it, I was wandering around the entire mansion with it in case I needed it, and it just took up a slot because the actual important key was behind a plant that I needed poison for, which was hiding in a trash can. The majority of puzzles are just grabbing one thing from one side of the mansion and bringing it to another, or push puzzles. There's only about 3, maybe 4 puzzles that don't fall under that category in the entire game. As much as I'm complaining about it though, it's not that bad. The travel puzzles are more of a test of your ability to remember the mansion's layout, as expected you didn't kill every zombie on one trip to the other, and they're made a little extra special by the ability to inspect objects. The game lets you examine the 3D models of items you collected for hints on where they need to go or find secrets in them. I felt so smart when I opened the Doom book and found an emblem in it. Should I have felt that smart? Probably not, but I did. Anyway, after getting the shield key from a piano puzzle and the wind crest I don't know the use for yet, I walked out onto the second floor balcony to find, ooh, a grenade launcher! Oh yeah, Forrest was also pecked to death by crows. Sucks to suck for After escaping the onslaught of crows, Barry meets me again and gives me some acid rounds. These are for the grenade launcher I got before, which has been mislabeled as the bazooka, so I'm going to be calling it that from now on. The bazooka is special because it can hold several different types of rounds. Grenade rounds are the most common, but do the least damage. Acid rounds are much stronger and much better, but not the best. And flame rounds freaking hurt. If you're gonna fight a boss, use the flame rounds. I feel like I got it a bit too early though. You can get it before you even get the shotgun if you really want, and this is one of the most powerful weapons in your arsenal by the end. I'm not complaining too much though. Free bazooka. At this point, I'm looking for 4 crests to leave the mansion and make my way to the courtyard. There's the wind crest that you get when you put a blue gem in the eye of the lion. The star crest is obtained after solving the first of the 3, maybe 4 not push or fetch quest puzzles. You get the sun crest after pushing around some statues, and the moon crest is a little bit more special. Jill takes the first door to the right on the second floor in the main hall to find Richard all nibbled on. He warns Jill about the dangers of the mansion and says straight up, out loud, to my face,
Ouch!
The gist is, he's been poisoned by a big snake, and I have to get his NyQuil before he eats the floorboards. I run all the way back to the safe room on the other side of the mansion and get it, and when I come back, it's too late. With his last breath, he gives me his radio and dies. And then he comes back, and then he dies. I looted the area around him and walked into the only room that required that key from earlier. I walk in and snake! Now in this segment, what I and most people will do is grab the moon crest and leave while trying to dodge the snake. But Senor Bullet is not having it today and single-handedly takes down the snake. You don't get anything from beating the snake, but he did it. Also, if you get bit, the poison from the snake will get you and Chris will come by and resuscitate you like the good friend he is. He also wasn't bit though, so you'll just have to trust my words here. I got all the crests though, which means it's time to go to the courtyard. You really only need to run through the courtyard. There aren't any puzzles yet, so it's kind of just a danger zone to get through before getting to the guardhouse. There's a lot of herbs though, so grab those. The guardhouse is a much more rustic design with less zombies and more focus on wildlife. Spiders, bees, plants, and sharks are more of a threat here. It's mostly just a big puzzle house though. There's a giant plant right here, and you have to poison its roots before you can kill it. After confiscating a key from some bees, Jill finds herself in a mysterious underground lab, which has been flooded, and before she can drain it, she has to fight off some sharks. Or you could just run from them and drain it to make the sharks flop around, cause they're really lame. After solving the second non-push or fetch quest puzzle, Jill finds out how to poison and kill the giant plant with a concoction called V-Jolt, and solves the third non-push or fetch quest puzzle to make the V-Jolt. Using it on the roots weakens the plant so you could kill it. Or you can just fight it for a bit and have Barry kill it for you with a flamethrower, because apparently you can do that. I got the helmet key and headed out back to the mansion. Before that though, Jill gets to talk to Wesker again. I'm pretty sure he only shows his face here to remind you that he exists, as he only says to go back to the mansion and lock more doors. Anything for you, Wesker. I don't know if you're supposed to sound suspicious or not, because you sound suspicious, but it could just be your voice acting. I'm watching you though. Barry's been a great help so far, you get no excuses. Well, I'm gonna forget about that real quick as I head on over to the mansion. During the run back to the mansion, the radio Richard gave me goes off and reveals that Brad's waiting for a return, we just gotta get to the helipad. The game thinks it's not spicy enough though, and sends in a hunter after me. These green gummies are really annoying. They're super durable and move really fast, so it's not really worth fighting them off. Luckily, there's one big weakness to them. They're left-handed. If one's facing you, just run to the right and you'll go right around them without any trouble. I made my way upstairs and found myself once again facing my old enemy. It smashes a hole in the ground and I blow it up pretty easily. I'm not Old Man Bullet, but this boss was still pretty easy. Examining the hole has Barry showing his face again, and he insists,
How about going down to check by yourself? I have a rope here.
You know what, sure. He lets me down the hole and drops the goddamn rope! Barry, you trash compactor?
Now I've done it. Sorry, Jill. Wait. I'll go and get another rope.
Barry left me alone in a hole. You know what? Screw you, Barry. I'm just gonna go deeper because apparently only one of us is competent. Walking down this area is kinda spooky because you can't just head back to a safe room. I also brought a shotgun though, so... Pow! I got an ammo disc, a doom book, and a battery, and now I can leave. That's all you really need when you get back to the mansion to progress, but there's one more thing that you should probably get before you leave. The possibly fourth non-push or fetch quest puzzle gets you a Colt Python, which is the magnum of the game. It's entirely optional, but it's really punchy, so I'm happy to have it. Leaving the mansion, I put in the battery and recranked the water to open up the caves. Going into the caves is an oddly peaceful segment of the game. There's no danger for quite a bit, and you get some healing sprayed rounds, but it's all going for the worst, as Jill encounters the captain of Bravo Team, Enrico. Enrico is injured and tells Jill that somebody in Stars is working with whoever did all this. He then is shot by a silenced pistol. Who could have done- Ooh, a clip! Who could have done this? It doesn't help much now that the caves are filled with hunters. I grabbed a crank that has the exact same sprite as the other crank I have and used it to open a new path. Almost immediately after opening a new path, Jill gets chased by a boulder which opens yet another path, so that's pretty cool. Too bad the new path leads to a giant spider! The bazooka kills it pretty quick, but watch out, it spits which hurts pretty bad. Once the spider's defeated, you have to grab a knife and cut your way out because its kids crawl out of its corpse if you take too long. After all that and dropping off all that I got in that segment, I went to dodge yet another boulder, solve the worst push puzzle I've ever seen, and get the second Doom book. Taking the medallions from both books and putting them on the sides of this fountain drains it as Jill descends into the final zone of the game. The Umbrella Lab. The lab isn't much different from the rest of the game. It's mostly just more fetch quest puzzles and one kinda annoying push puzzle. The majority of the lab experience is finding more MO discs and exchanging them for codes and Bible verses. This is when the story gets really fun, though. First of all, there's a letter to Ada in this game who would go on to do much more in later titles, but that's all we really get of her. But then there's the other stuff, which is much more fun. Jill puts together a slideshow which gives some description of the enemy's face so far, but also reveals that Wesker was the traitor this whole time. Turns out the guy described as the man who wears sunglasses in all the letters was the only character who wears sunglasses. Jill doesn't react at all to this information. While trying to reactivate the elevator, you come across these bug creatures who are scary at first because they can climb walls and all that, but are honestly less dangerous than even basic zombies. They're so clumsy you can just run past them most of the time. Upon reactivating the elevator, Jill meets Barry and they go up together, but as soon as they get to the top, j'accuse! There's Wesker and Barry turns on you because Wesker is holding his family hostage. Wesker claims to be better than Umbrella and is going rogue, so he beckons Jill into the lab behind him to show off his tyrant. That's not a euphemism, I swear. After releasing the tyrant, it immediately turns on Wesker and impales him through the chest. He'll be fine. The battle against the tyrant is pretty anticlimactic as it just follows you in a circle and you shoot it a couple times. You make your way out of the room and use all the codes you got from the MO discs to release Chris from the prison he's found himself in and make your way up to the helipad where Brad is waiting for you. Before escaping, Barry is found wounded by the storage box. He asks Jill to give a note to his family as he breathes his last breath. Jill promises him this and leaves his body to the mansion. Just before the final exit, Tyrant comes back with vengeance. Chris goes to fight him off, and when Jill tells him not to go alone, he responds with,
"Give me a chance to play nice guy."
"Alright, Chris, whatever floats your boat." Jill gets to the helipad and uses what I can only assume is a Nerf dart to call down Brad. We then get the final cutscene as everyone flies away in the helicopter and Chris and Jill platonically hold hands. Huh. That's it? The ending was very anticlimactic, so I decided to do a bit of research, and apparently I got a bad ending. You know that part where Barry dropped the rope? Well, apparently I was just supposed to wait for him to come back with another rope. That was the only reason I got the bad ending, and Barry died. The true ending has Barry knocking Wesker unconscious and the mansion blowing up after a second battle with the Tyrant, a battle I'll talk about more later. That's all that changes, and I'm not willing to play through the whole game again to get that, so thanks Turkish Bullet for doing this work so I don't have to. That's only half the game though. I still have to play Chris's story. Chris's story is incredibly similar to Jill's with all the same puzzles and layouts, but the story has been altered and Chris gets different weapons. Chris is seen as the hard mode of the first Resident Evil. He only starts with a knife, never gets the bazooka, and only has 6 inventory slots unlike Jill's 8. He also doesn't get Jill's lockpick, so he uses various dex keys to get the loot that Jill gets immediately. All these things make Chris the more difficult option, but after all the downsides, Chris isn't that hard. Now a new player should definitely start with Jill, but Chris isn't that much more difficult to play. The thing about Chris is he's a little bit more tedious, and the mission feels a little lonelier without Barry, instead partnering with 18-year-old Bravo Team medic Rebecca Chambers. The story starts the same, with a live-action video of Alpha Team arriving at the scene and getting dogged. When they get to the mansion, Barry's gone missing and they find themselves fighting off hordes of zombies. Wesker stays with Jill and Chris goes on his own to investigate a gunshot heard from another room. Oh no, Kenneth! Realize you still suck at knife combat and go back to the main hall to tell Wesker and Jill what's going on, but they're nowhere to be found. Jill left her pistol though, so that's cool. Solve puzzles, walk around, yada yada yada, head on over to a safe room, and oh hey Rebecca! Thinking Chris is a zombie, Rebecca attacks him with pepper spray. She realizes her mistake though and says her iconic line.
Oh! Oh no!
Don't believe me? That is literally the sound clip they chose for her action figure in RE5.
I'm Rebecca! Oh no!
Anyway, Chris is apparently immune to pepper spray and just keeps going while Rebecca puts together a concoction. He finds Moonlight Sonata but can't read sheet music or play piano, so Rebecca comes over and gives her first attempt.
Wait, what is that?
My interpretation is off a little. Chris, may I practice for a while?
As much as I want to live out my dream of being a disapproving father figure who sees no value in your musical efforts and wants you to invest in oil or become a lawyer instead of pursuing your pathetic baby dreams, go right ahead, Rebecca, you're doing great. Other than that one, all the other puzzles in the mansion are basically the exact same as Jill's route. I had to actually solve the shotgun puzzle instead of just having Barry bail me out of the death trap, and there was no bazooka by Forrest, but instead just a clip. I hope this isn't my blood. You fight the snake, whose name is Jan, by the way, I forgot to mention that, and oh no! I got bit, but Bulletin didn't again. Oh no! If you get bit, Rebecca finds your poisoned body, and you get to play as her for a little bit, getting the serum she made earlier. But I guess you'll just have to trust me on this. Anyway, I got all the crests, so to the guardhouse I go. The guardhouse segment is exactly the same as Jill, although Chris is too much of a loaf to handle chemicals, so he has to fight the plant without it being weakened. What do you know, Chris gets grabbed by it and Rebecca has to save him again. She solves the V-Jolt puzzle and poisons the plant so that Chris can deal the final blow and take all the credit. Chris grabs the key, talks to Wesker, he says nothing new, and Chris runs back to the mansion where hunters wait for him. Deal with the hunters, grab the battery, ammo disc, Doombook, Magnum, and leave missing a segment where Rebecca almost dies. You don't need it to get the best ending, so she's probably fine. Hop in the caves and meet Enrico. He was so nice to Jill, I can't wait to see him again.
Double crosser! Don't! Hell. Umbrella.
Thanks, Wesker, for covering for me. Crank, run, spider, shoot, knife, where's push puzzle, Doombook number 2, drain the fountain, enter umbrella facility, ammo discs, and restore the elevator. See, I told you she was fine. Both Chris and Rebecca confront Wesker at the top of the elevator, and Wesker just shoots Rebecca. Alright, Wesker, what do you want? Wesker shows Chris his tyrant, which this time is a euphemism, and in a turn of events, Chris starts laughing at Wesker in a scene that honestly had me thinking that Chris was the true villain this whole time.
Chris? Stop it.
Wesker, you're pitiful.
Wesker gets got, and Chris shoots down the tyrant. Rebecca's waiting outside, and is perfectly fine because she had a bulletproof vest.
How about Captain Wesker?
He is sleeping with the ultimate failure.
Why are we so mean to Wesker all of a sudden? Rebecca then rigs the place to explode as Chris saves Jill from the prison she somehow ended up in, and they embrace each other in a perfectly non-romantic hug. They head on up, and Tyrant shows his ugly face again on the helipad. Chris commences in the final battle. Why is he so fast? Ah! He has these wide swings, and if he gets you, he can stun you pretty easily. Luckily, with 30 seconds left on the timer, Brad drops a rocket launcher and Chris deals the final blow. You would go through this whole segment again if you got the true ending as Jill, but I didn't, so here it is here. Everyone gets on the helicopter, and Barry was never seen again. And that's Resident Evil. I made fun of it a lot, but honestly, I still like it. The puzzles are oddly satisfying, and getting through the campaign feels like a full journey, which is a lot more than what I can say for the other games in the series. So why should somebody play this game? Well, it's really fun to see where the series began, and it's still kinda scary. I'd say if you can play it, get some friends together and play it, swapping the controller occasionally. That is, if you can play it. The first Resident Evil is hard to come across, as you can only really play the original copy or pirate it. I mean, there is the DS port, which I would have got for this video, but my local game store was selling it for just a little too much. Luckily, in 2002, Capcom would make Resident Evil Remake, which is the ideal way to play this game now. The story and everything is essentially the same, but there's a lot more puzzles and rooms, and they improved the old puzzles while still keeping the game true to the original. You can tell Capcom had a lot of fun remaking the game as they found more creative places to position the camera, like the spot under the table, or here where you can see the zombie, but only from its shadow by the window. They definitely boosted the art design, with new designs for the various rooms and 1950s heart monitor, plus all the cool new things that come with inspecting objects. You can open ink ribbons and see little animations when inspecting all the guns you pick up. Resident Evil was the cause of many gun nerds, and with this game, I can see why. The game is somewhat scarier as well, with the introduction of kerosene and the fact that if you don't burn bodies or pop off their heads, they'll get back up even angrier than normal. The deadlier zombies aren't too much of an issue though, as they also added daggers in this game, which can be used to get out of some tricky situations. There's so much new stuff added, yet it still feels like the first game. In fact, this may be one of the best Resident Evil games of all time. I definitely recommend whether you played the first game or not. Resident Evil games are always on sale, so it shouldn't be too much of a risk. But I'm getting carried away. The Resident Evil Remake is a good game. Go play it. If you can play the original, go play that. I have burned my last candle down to the base making this, and I don't think there's anything else I need to cover. So I'm going to pass out before I start working on the next Resident Evil 2 video. If you watched this long, you must have liked something, so go ahead and subscribe. I can't promise when the next video will come out, but it'd be nice if you did. If you want to see some more stuff from me, go check out my older videos. The Splatoon 3 video was pretty cool. Okay, bye for now. I'm gonna go play more Resident Evil Remake.